Um, I am Varun Sakalkar, Principal Engineer at Google. I am here to talk about a few emerging trends when it comes to data center architectures, especially as we look into the next decade, and especially in the context of hyperscale. So I will talk about some of those key drivers, touch upon only a few solutions given the time constraints, and then I would also like to motivate a call to action on some of the areas that we as a community can maybe lean in. So I think I'm trying to identify 5 key drivers as I look into the future when it comes that can influence the innovation that we have to do when it comes to data center architectures. You'll notice some of these drivers are actually true technology features we have to deliver, like sustainability and security. But there are also engineering activities we have to do that improves the velocity and execution and delivery of data centers. So execution and innovation kind of have to go hand in hand, especially as we try to scale. So what are these drivers? Let's start with fast capacity delivery, and then doing that globally, to be able to manifest across a diverse set of IT portfolio while delivering those data centers. And then finally, being actionable against emerging trends in security, sustainability. If you look at those 5 drivers, I think there are actually a few key solution invariants that if we lean in, we can actually solve for maybe at least 5 of these trends pretty coherently. These solutions, I have a few keywords identified here: modular systems, being able to have architectures that can track energy fluctuations, both on the demand side and the supply side. Then taking sustainability as a first order in situ requirement, and same for security. If we put all this together, I think for the next decade, the mission statement that I see for hyperscale data centers is to be able to design modular, secure systems that can track energy demand and supply fluctuations globally. So that's kind of my North Star as I look into the future. So let's start over the next few slides. I would like to kind of walk through these 5 key drivers and maybe touch upon a few solutions for each one. The first one is around faster capacity delivery. So, velocity or speed of execution, it's something that manifests to the life cycle of a data center. From the moment you purchase a piece of land, if you're building a data center, permit something on it, and then you procure equipment, and then start building on it. There are a few key things that we probably want to maybe focus on as we look at different epochs of that life cycle. From a permitting point of view and procurement point of view, looking at pre-manufactured products and inventorying them in a regional pool. Apart from that, as you start getting more into the vertical construction, there is a design paradigm I would like to motivate based on modular design principles, which come in really handy, especially if you're trying to execute at scale with velocity. Because one of the key paradigms that stops you from achieving velocity is your ability to accept change of any kind. And that change can be because of emerging requirements, emerging needs based on local considerations you have to do while building to those codes. So anything that lets you ingest change in a much more constrained manner helps you achieve velocity. And modular design framework kind of is the fundamental principle in my mind that lets you do that. Another design guiding principle that is interesting to look at is how do you build as small as possible? The simple thinking being, if you have to build as little, just in time with your demand, you probably will be quick in deploying that. So incremental capacity deployment is another feature. Let's talk about modularity though. When I look at modularity, I think of this pyramid that I have shown on the left here. So let's start from the bottom. You have components and modules which are designed with very, very key interfaces and variances that are built into the definition of those components. And if you're able to do that, when you combine that into a DC product, you basically productize the data center. And if what that lets you do is essentially bring flexibility against emerging changes, and then react to them quickly. What it also allows you to do is allows you to do late binding changes. If you have tomorrow, I think one of the previous speakers was talking about liquid cooling trends. If you suddenly have to convert a good chunk of your capacity into liquid cooling, if you're able to constrain those changes in the specific set of products and interfaces, then it's much faster to introduce those changes. So being able to do this across your stack lets you ingest those without compromising velocity. I'll move on to the next trend, which is around global deployments. Before I talk about that, though, this just shows you the scale that Google is operating it in today. We have roughly 23 data centers deployed globally, and is ever growing, especially because of cloud, Google Cloud Platform's growth. So how do you actually, without compromising velocity that we just discussed, how do you actually do this at scale globally? One of the key insight that I have here is if you are able to design it once and deploy in as many locations as possible, that lets you actually reduce the engineering uplift required to meet the needs of this global market. So how do you do that? Again, modularity is actually a key enabler here. If you keep your customizations required to meet this global deployment in a bounded manner through modularity, and by managing your interfaces very cleanly through version control, and by including variance drivers in the very definition of those interfaces, you can actually scale, meet this global need very well. Apart from that, you also probably want to think about creating regional and inventory pools for your supply chain, and also look at suppliers which have global reach. The next trend I want to spend a little bit more time on is a diversification in the IT product portfolio. We have an ever-increasing, ever-changing need when it comes to data centers. I consider data centers to be like a bread that needs to sustain a lot of different kind of condiments on top of it. And the condiments can change over time. So how do you design this such that you're agnostic to whatever you can put on it? So that payload agnostic nature of data centers is something, it's a key vision, I feel, especially as we look into the future. And there are two areas we probably want to focus on. One is how do we support industry trends around emerging cooling trends, both liquid cooling, immersion cooling, and support that from an interface point of view. Another key trend, another key thing to consider in this space is if you have variable power densities. So for example, on the graph at the bottom here, I'm showing you across 2 time epochs, 4 years apart, what the rack power density CDF distribution looks like. And it is very interesting that you are clearly seeing that the racks are getting dense in power. So your, the tail on the right is kind of stretching out further and further. But what is also interesting is your left-hand side tail is pinned down. So your variance is increasing. So as you look into the future, this variance is always going to get wider. So the key design philosophy we have to maybe look at more closely is how do you design to this ever-increasing variance within your data centers? So here's a potential solution to that. How about we leverage a little bit more of automation, which is aware of this variance, not just historical variance that you have seen, but the upcoming variance that you expect to see. What do I mean by that? So I'm showing you 2 pictures here. The picture on the bottom left is if you take a rack and you randomly distribute your deployment on the data center floor, and you go through the generations of machines, and the blue bars there are the lowest density racks you have, which are sprinkled all over the place. And if you kind of do your checksum at the end of the day, once the data center is full, you realize your stranded power. You are actually maybe locally constrained. You actually cannot even support some local high power densities. So instead of looking at this this chaotic picture, I think we should just defrag it a little bit, which is what I think we probably need to do from a deployment automation point of view. That defrag picture is kind of a cartoon on the right here. And if you're able to achieve that much more structured deployment, you not only can minimize your stranding, you can actually alleviate some of your local constraints that you see, and maybe even maximize the TCO for this data center. I would like to move on to the next trend, which is around sustainability. This is a big focus. Google has made big commitments in this space, both with respect to energy sustainability and water sustainability. The North Star, I think, at least what we have, is trying to achieve zero carbon and zero water operations globally. When it comes to water stewardship, I think leaning into water efficient cooling technologies is very key. What is also very key is whatever community or data center is going in, how responsible are you with respect to the watershed in that community? Are you being proactive about it, about contributing to that watershed? And taking key initiatives in that space is very important. The other example is around energy sustainability. And I think one of the key trends that maybe I would like to talk about a little bit more today is the interplay between carbon-free power and IT workload in terms of flexibility. Because I think there is a lot to be gained from taking advantage of that. I would also briefly touch upon some hardware and software co-design. If you are able to deploy more batteries on-site generation on our sites, then how do we take advantage of that? First, let's talk about the interplay. So early in mid 2020, we released this study where, depending on the greenness of the local grid at the time of the day, we actually were able to follow the sun essentially in terms of the greenness of the power available and modulate the workload against it. This was pretty successful in the sense that if you're able to scale this globally, we can reduce our carbon, we can improve the amount of energy that is carbon free by up to 3 to 5%, is what this study showed us. And this is just by doing this by being able to manipulate the workload in time. Since then, what we've also looked at is what if we do it in space and time? So what this example shows is moving your workload across different data centers globally lets you actually expand the same paradigm of taking advantage of workload flexibility to align with the sustainability needs with respect to energy usage. So this was also a pretty interesting study. The link for both of these studies is in the previous slide that I showed you. Let me briefly touch upon a co-design opportunity also. So apart from workload flexibility, if you are able to deploy some more on-site generation, we can achieve actually a few things. One, actually, especially if you have lithium-ion batteries instead of diesel generators, you have a much cleaner power backup solution. But what is also interesting about lithium-ion batteries is they are dispatchable. So you can actually use that to green the grid that you are connected to. And so we also have released an article earlier this year where Google is trying to do this co-optimization by deploying lithium-ion batteries as the primary backup source within our data centers at scale, and taking advantage of that by not just greening the backup source that we have, but also greening the grid by combining that by dispatching that battery in conjunction with the workload flexibility I talked about earlier. And so I think this is another lever that we can lean into a little bit more and expand on as more dispatchable energy sources become much more TCO positive other than lithium-ion batteries like fuel cells and so on and so forth. Finally, the last trend I want to briefly touch upon is security. I think security as a paradigm has evolved quite a bit, but I think there's a lot of work to be done here, especially when it comes to physical infrastructure, OT or operational technologies. whatever the hardware and software we use, it seems to be lacking both in version control, config management, access control, compared to our typical IT systems that we have in our data centers. So I think this is an area that is emerging, that will really benefit as a community if we lean in, both in terms of developing a rigorous approach for how to manage this OT equipment, but also standardize the data protocols so that we can integrate them faster. While we do that, there are a few design principles I would like to motivate. First one is design for defense in depth, which is increase your complexity for having a successful compromise for OT devices, similar to what you do for your IT hardware and infrastructure. But also reduce the blast radius. If somebody is able to compromise your cooling plant, the blast radius of that is potentially large. So how do you actually manage that failure domain from a security point of view? So that's something that is something that we should pay a little bit more attention to. I'll finish my talk with a call to action in no particular order. I think we touched upon a lot of these topics just now. I do think there is more we can do in terms of leaning into the modular infrastructure design framework that I was discussing earlier, and taking advantage of that to move as an industry as fast as possible to meet the data center need globally. I think we'll also benefit from having a commonized interface. And this interface can be around distribution voltages. It can be around water supply temperatures, just as a few examples. I think co-design of IT hardware and data center, physical data center, is a unique opportunity. It can actually help in a few different axes or a few different trends that we discussed earlier. Sustainability, security, and even being able to accommodate variable IT equipment. And finally, from a security's point of view, if we can lean in on a next-gen open protocol for all our infrastructure devices that really addresses security as a first-class citizen within our physical infrastructure, with some semantic richness that actually makes it configurable, programmable, similar to what we take for granted with our typical IT hardware stack. So with that, I would like to kind of close my talk and open this up for any questions. Thank you. Yeah.
When you follow the sun and you move your workloads to maximize efficiency, do you have any constraints with the data that's created, the data that's manipulated, that certain workloads you can't move because of data sovereignty?
Absolutely. I think flexibility has constraints. So the optimizer here has that has built into it, and it tracks it real time based on the priority of the job tiers and the sovereignty constraints that you're talking about. Absolutely, yeah. Yeah.
Hi, thanks, Wolmers. Very interesting presentation and a lot of really cool systems you touched on. I think power generation or power cogeneration is really interesting. So you said your backup infrastructure is currently batteries, if I understand correctly.
Yeah.
And it's so in a space that is probably in a dimension that is not running as long as the diesel generator. Are you also able then to offload to offload the workloads to other data centers, or are you running into constraints in terms of your backup?
I see. I think there are a couple of questions there, so maybe let me take the first one. So I think we're just starting on this journey. As I mentioned, we announced the battery as a backup just mid this year. So I wouldn't say all of our backup is batteries at this point, but we are starting on this journey for sure. I think your second question was around how are we able to how is workload flexibility? To what extent are we exposing workload flexibility when you look at the core design problem? So I think both time and space flexibility that I talked about earlier is something that we are looking into. And of course, it has constraints as you start looking at more space flexibility and taking advantage of that. you have to check some on a few different larger set of constraints that you need to be careful about. But yes, I think both are in play. Did I answer your question? Okay. Yeah.
When you're talking about the defrag portions or even just the workflow movement,
Yeah.
how do you take into account like reliability and failure? Because you are signing up for some sort of risk.
That's a great point. So I think what I did not touch upon is how do you, everything else being the same, how do you take advantage of this, right? So so you will need to revisit the architectural stack a little bit so that you can create a microcosm of failure domains that remains an invariant through this change. I did not talk about those architectural changes specifically today, but does need to be considered. I'll give an example. If you have, in that cartoon, I think on the right, if you have a local, say, sprinkler going off, and you suddenly have a lot of those low-density rack going down, so you cannot allow that, right? So how do you actually revisit really from first principles, such that other things being invariant, you're still able to unlock this additional opportunity, because it is an additional opportunity. You can understand a lot of power, reduce your lot of TCO. So I think that optimization exercise has to take that both into consideration. Okay. Thank you.